friend made me watch a documentary. It was called Loose Change. I will never forget it. Never, ever forget it.
Certainly, there have been times where, there's no way we're hiring a white male person.
Just kind of unspoken.
There are times when it's spoken, but
how would they say it?
There's no way we're hiring a white male person.
I came out of watching that documentary, which I think if you looked it up today, it would say conspiracy theories about 9/11. But irrespective of how they want to categorize it, at the very least, you came out of it recognizing that not everything was told to the public about that day.
As a white guy, even Michael has his own doubts about the possibility for advancement for himself at Disney. In fact, Michael actually got to experience Disney's discrimination against white males firsthand.
I've been at the company 11 years now.
There were plenty of Americans who thought that it was, at the very least, incredibly suspicious during 9/11, shortly thereafter, when this segment ran, also back in 2002, on ABC News as an update to a prior segment that they had done. Take a listen.
In the days after the September attacks, there were countless rumors about strange coincidences surrounding the events. One report about a group of Middle Eastern men spotted the morning of September 11th parked just across the river from New York City.
What's going on, everybody? It's Thursday. It's summertime. I figured we'd take it easy today. Everybody's always talking about things that are so deep and so important. And I was like, let's slow it down. Let's chill out. Let's just have a low-key day. And let's talk about Candace Owens questioning 9/11 and James O'Keefe talking about anti-whiteism at Disney in a new league. Easy going, just calm stuff for the people. So that's the story of the day. Hope you guys stay tuned. We're going to look at some clips. We're going to do a reaction, and then I'm going to say what I think. Appreciate you guys. God bless you. God bless your family. Dream Rare podcast starts now. Give me a thumbs up in the chat to let me know everything sounds good, and give me a thumbs up on the video on Facebook, YouTube, or Rumble for the algorithm. Starts now.
It's the Dream Rare podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. Yeah.
What's going on, folks? I appreciate y'all. Like I said, it's summertime. It's almost Friday. The sun's out. So I was like, let's slow it down. Let's not do too much. Let's just take an easy topic of Candace Owens talking about 9/11. Now, I'm just being semi-sarcastic. I know it's a pretty heavy subject, but I thought there were some clips that were interesting to me. I wanted to react to them and also look into James O'Keefe's video that's going viral. Even Elon Musk seems very concerned about the quote-unquote anti-whiteism at Disney being revealed, although I think everybody kind of had that inkling already. But let's get into the video. I chopped up a few clips of Candace explaining why she's questioning 9/11, because some people might not understand, or some people may have a similar trajectory as her. So here's the first clip of her saying, I saw some documentary called Loose Change when I was in high school or college.
And I want to be clear, this was the land and the time before smartphones. There were no independent media voices that were offering reports. There was no Twitter. There was no social media on Instagram. And I think now, obviously, we appreciate how significant independent voices are, especially in times of high confusion. I mean, from COVID vaccines to Russia collusion, we now very much understand that the mainstream media is capable of getting it wrong.
So she makes the point. She says, now we have independent journalism. Back then, it didn't really exist so much. And this is the interesting counterpoint that I wanted to talk about real quick before I play the next clip, where a lot of people will say the media is worse than it used to be. Partially true. Partially, the media has gone insane. But a lot of people don't think when it was just radio, when it was just television, when it was just the music industry, and there really were no independent voices, and it was nearly impossible to compete because cell phones didn't exist, what were they doing? Like, how controlled really was it? Because some people think like, oh, the news was really honest when I was in the 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s when I grew up. And it's like, it could have been true. I think some elements of it were more honest. But what if you just thought it was honest because that's all you knew? And then as soon as there were other perspectives, it wasn't so honest. So I think her point to that is an interesting one, where she says, now we have all these independent journalists. Imagine if we went through COVID lockdowns with no independent journalists. It's an interesting thought that I think a lot of people don't consider, but I consider that all the time. Sure, things have gotten worse in some ways, but also, a lot of people are able to counter the narrative. What was it really like in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s when nobody was really able to question anything? And I remember growing up, everyone thought everything I said all the time was crazy. It's like, we believe what we're told. We trust history. We trust our teachers. We trust the TV. And you're basically a psychopath if you don't. Interesting how things have changed. Anyway, next clip.
And also capable of telling massive lies. So what immediately followed the September 11th terrorist attack was, as I reflect upon it in the retrospect, now that I'm an adult, a married mother, 35 years old, and my brain is developed, I recognized Soviet tactics of brainwashing that took place thereafter. I mean, every day, I was an 11-year-old child, 11-year-old, 12-year-old child.
I'm not going to play all the clips, but she talks about how when she was young, they made them line up in school or made us line up in school. I wasn't in her school, but you get what I'm saying. The youth at the time, because I'm around her age. And at 9/11 every day, they were thinking about death. And on one hand, of course, it's nice to commemorate what happened. But on another hand, like Candace had said, there wasn't really any independent voices. It was like fear, death, death, fear, death, death, fear, death. Here's what we're going to do as a country because of the fear and death. And everybody acted in unison. And a lot of people look at that time, although it was horrific, they look at that as a time of unity. And they're like, man, that's when the country was together. That's when we were all in on it. That's when we were America. Sure, in some ways, absolutely. Like that was a time where it was less divided. But just being united when the unity is being controlled to push a foreign policy that we're all not questioning because of the tragic event does have to make you wonder a little bit at this point if you have half a brain cell. But anyway, here's the part of her talking about watching this documentary that I've also seen when I was young. I saw it in my teens as well. It's probably the most popular conspiracy theory documentary of the time, called Loose Change.
A couple of years later, I entered high school, and my older sister's boyfriend made me watch a documentary. It was called Loose Change. I will never forget it. Never, ever forget it. I came out of watching that documentary, which I think if you looked it up today, it would say conspiracy theories about 9/11. But irrespective of how they want to categorize it, at the very least, you came out of it recognizing that not everything was told to the public about that day.
So, yeah, I'm sure the mainstream media, fact checkers, the people who run all social media pages would say, that's a conspiracy theory documentary. And, I'm not going to stand by everything that documentary said. I haven't watched it in 20 years. I don't even know if it's really true, to be honest. But it just asked a lot of questions about how the buildings fell, the material, a lot of stuff about the tapes being hidden or whatever. And, I would just say this, most people at the time were like, that's ridiculous to even question anything about it. It's unpatriotic. We need to go kill the bad guys who did it. And it's very similar, I think, to I get the same type of rhetoric from Israel-Palestine, where if you do not just parrot whatever the pro-Israel narrative is in the war or the Israel-American narrative, they say that you're Hamas, it's a terrorist. And to me, it reminds me of 9/11, where I'm obviously American. I love America. I don't side with the people who did 9/11, but if buildings are going to fall, thousands of people are going to die, and then you're just going to tell me, don't think about it, don't ask questions, just do what the military industrial complex says, and that's what's best for you. Well, it's 2024 now, and what's going on is not best for me. The country's not as good as it was 5-10 years ago. The economy's not as good. Racial division is worse than it was. Pretty much everybody knows that the country is going in the wrong direction. So that game that they played in the 2000s that worked so well, the reason that it worked so well then is because we didn't have independent journalism at the time. And also the country was actually good, and it was believable that the people running our country were doing the right thing. Now, it's not believable at all that the people running the country are doing the right thing because it's so obvious that they're not. But Candace makes some interesting points here.
For example, we were told that the terrorist attacks were executed by the Saudis, remember? Which totally explains why we then decided to go to war with Iraq, who had weapons of mass destruction that were never found. And who can forget how the newscasters told the public that they were definitely sure that it was the Saudis?
Here, she has a clip of the news reporting when they said that they knew it was the Saudis because they found some sort of ID in the rubble and the fire or whatever. But I do want to say this real quick about, well, maybe I'll just play that clip first. Hold on one second.
Another development on Saturday, New York officials revealed at a news conference here in the city that a hijacker's passport was found blocks from the World Trade Center crash site, if you can believe that. No other details were given, but the discovery prompted the FBI and police to expand the search area down in Lower Manhattan.
I like how even the newscaster says, if you can believe that, because nope, I refuse to believe that, and you should not either. You are telling me that somebody hijacked a plane, got onto the plane, crashed the plane exploded into fire, tower collapsed. They could not even find all of the human remains. But in all of this, in all of the fire, in the collapse of the building, and all the dust, in all the struggle, they found, and didn't give any details of how or who found it, a passport. The little paper passport survived everything. And they go, oh, well, look, this is one of the hijackers.
Right. That is extremely interesting. One thing I wanted to say was about if you took everything they told you as true at face value, even if it was like, okay, Al-Qaeda did this. Okay. Bin Laden did this. Okay. Saudis did this. Okay. Well, what does that have to do with Iraq? What does that have to do with invading Syria? What does that have to do with invading Libya, overthrowing the leader of Libya, overthrowing the leader of Iraq? These were for completely separate reasons. You could look into it yourself, but Iraq, the Saddam Hussein and Gaddafi of Libya, these leaders were under pressure for decades. One way that I've learned this, besides just like, there's a lot to get into, but there's an interview that Louis Farrakhan does with Mike Wallace in the 1990s, way before 9/11. And in the 1990s, they're talking about Saddam and Gaddafi. Like, there's already a lot of heat from the American, community, or whatever you want to say, the government, on those leaders. And they were grilling Louis Farrakhan as to why he knew those leaders. And it's a fascinating historical interview because it's just like watching a time capsule from an era that's far gone. But in general, it's like, now that all of this went down, it's like, okay, now we got to go do all these things that we kind of wanted to do anyway that kind of don't really have anything to do with what we told you that happened, but you have to believe that we're doing it for your best interest. And this is where they prayed. And this is why growing up, I wasn't conservative. I'll tell you right now, the reason I wasn't a Republican and a conservative growing up, and some people might take this wrong, I knew instinctually that Republicans were stupid in the George Bush era because they just believed all the propaganda. And I knew a lot of it was a lie, but most Republicans and conservatives, they were like, yeah, same way they're doing with Israel, Palestine now, to be quite honest. And I'm not asking you to pick a side or agree with what I'm saying, but it was the same stupid rhetoric from Republicans. And it's making me disgusted seeing how Republicans are acting now, because I'm like, these doofuses haven't learned since the 2000s. But they would be like, oh, we got to go fight the Muslims and the terrorists, and they don't even know who they're fighting. They don't even know the difference between the countries. They don't even know the difference between the Muslim sects. They don't even know if there's even Muslims really there, if they're going after a Muslim, or if they're even in a Muslim country. It's just like they filled George Bush era Republicans' brains with rot, and these people just thought they were going to fight the terrorists, but they don't even know who the terrorists are. They don't know who, what country they're in. It's just like, pump out pro-America propaganda that doesn't actually make sense to brainwash stupid Republicans, and they fell for it hook, line, and sinker. And they don't know Libya. They don't know who Gaddafi is. They don't know the difference between Saddam Hussein and bin Laden. It's just like, Team America, F yeah, we're going to kill the bad guys. And the sad part is I thought a lot changed over the years, but all it took were a few foreign conflicts in 2022 and 2023. And you realize that a lot of people have learned the lesson, and a lot of the younger generation is not as stupid. But no offense, a lot of these older Republicans, they revert right back into this. Everybody who disagrees with them is a terrorist. They think they're killing like 30 members of a family to fight the terrorists in Palestine. And just like they had no curiosity in Iraq and Iran and Afghanistan and Yemen and Syria, they have no curiosity here. They're like, oh no, we're just killing tens of thousands of women and children because they're all hiding terrorists. It's like, so they're telling you. You better hope that's true, because if not, your taxpayer dollars are just killing tens of thousands of women and children, which is insane. But you think that that's where they are, just like you thought that Gaddafi had something to do with Saddam, or you thought that Saddam had something to do with bin Laden, and you thought they were going to Afghanistan to protect your country, and you thought that the Republican Party liked America, and you thought that the Uniparty really had your best interest. Yeah, you thought all those things. You still think all those things, but what if you're wrong? And a lot of us know, especially the younger generation that saw through that then, like, I'm glad I wasn't a Republican in my 2000s, because they were stupider than liberals. And even now, the same games, they just flip both sides back and forth, and they play the Democrats for 10 years. Then they play the Republicans for 10 years. And as soon as you think one of the parties is getting so much smarter, they revert back into their same stupid propaganda. And I just want to say this. I don't know much about the Saudi passport situation, but if you think Saudi hijackers did it on behalf of bin Laden, that's understandable. But did you never question the fact we ended up in 5, 6, 7 different countries that we wanted to go in 10 years ago? You never considered that they use that now as an excuse to push a foreign policy that they already wanted to push? I mean, most people have figured this out at this point. It's pretty obvious, but then somehow a lot of those people that think that they have no curiosity about foreign conflicts now. They just assume that they're doing it for some moral, religious reason, right? The same uniparty. Yeah, Lindsey Graham wants to do the right thing in Israel and Palestine, right? He's just such a saint. And then in Ukraine, it's got to be, right? Because that's just like George Bush. He did all these things for you, right? No, you don't question it at all. He must just really be on the right side of history. I'm not asking people to play opposite day. It's just scrutinize the narrative a little bit. It doesn't mean you hate your country. It doesn't mean you hate your people. It doesn't mean you think what happens right when it's wrong. But you got to understand that tragedies are used to do other stuff. And what Candace is saying is valid. I haven't really looked at 9/11 in a while. It's not something that I've gone back over. I remember the documentaries at the time, but that's what they said. They knew it was a Saudi guy because they saw his passport. They found his passport in burning planes and rubble. That's fascinating that it's lasted, that came out. And then it's also fascinating that from that, we ended up in 5, 6, 7 different countries. And the reason that they're able to get away with it, besides the fact that the government can do whatever they want, is the fact that they brainwashed hundreds of millions of Americans through fear, through death, through a tragedy, into thinking that whole part of the world is terrorists. That whole part of the world is Muslim. I mean, most of them are, but in some places they're not, and you don't even know the difference. You just think they're all like living with camels or whatever. Like, you don't even know that area of the land. And now you fast forward and everyone's like, oh no, look, the whole world's leaving us for bricks. Of course they're leaving us for bricks. And a lot of it goes back to the neocon foreign policy of 9/11, because as you were saying, go fight the terrorists, and America expanded into probably 10 different countries. Any country in that area is like, yeah, how could you trust America? They're just going to brainwash their people into thinking we're all terrorists and use it as an excuse to overthrow our leaders in countries and leave it in shambles, or at least leave it the same as it was. It's not like, Libya wasn't better off after we overthrew Gaddafi, because we didn't do it for Libyans and we didn't do it for Americans. We did it for some neocon foreign policy that's above our pay grade, that most people don't even know why they're doing it. Maybe it's for our best interest, or for the petrodollar, for the banks, or for the country that we defend. It's hard to really tell. But at the end of the day, I think it's no surprise that, dozens of countries don't want to do business with America like they used to. Why would they, when Republicans got brainwashed for the 2000s into thinking that invading and overthrowing leaders in countries was awesome? Because the average Republic brain thought, oh, Middle East equals terrorist. Middle East equals bin Laden. Just go kill or overthrow anybody and I'll never pay attention. And I'll call everybody a terrorist and a conspiracy theorist who has questions about what we're doing. We're now reaping what we sowed over there. And it's the same thing with COVID. Before I play this clip, I don't want to get into it too much, but it's like the uniparty imploded the economy. Trump imploded the economy. Pelosi, Schumer, they all imploded the economy. Everyone has blood on their hands or inflation on their hands except for Thomas Massey. And now they're going to tell you, oh, no, it's just Biden. Yeah, Biden's not making it better. Democrats suck. They spend too much also. But Trump is just as complicit. And nobody will tell you that. So it's like, you think you're fighting all these things, but you're just reaping what you sowed. So when you say it's okay to do this, this, and this because it's Trump and he's trying to trick Fauci or whatever, it's like, yeah, okay, tell it to your bank account for the next 15 years. You could convince yourself that. You could put on a MAGA hat. You can go to a rally. But at the end of the day, inflation is going to hit, either way because of what you did. And America is unfortunately reaping what it sowed with foreign policy, domestic policy, and both parties are so geniusly trying to trick other people into thinking it's just the Democrats. It's like, oh, it's just the Democrats. George Bush did a lot of this stuff. Oh, Obama did a lot of this stuff. Trump did a lot of this stuff. But no, he's so different. It's like, it's such a joke when you really know what's going on to watch how easily people are fooled back into doing the wrong thing, because they know if they do the wrong thing, it's like a kid that has no discipline. They know that 4 or 5 years down the road, they never have to take accountability. Like, oh yeah, we messed up. Oh yeah, we got tricked. It's just like Obama's running the show. Obama didn't even run his administration, let alone run Biden's administration. Biden's not running the Biden administration. Obama's not running the Obama administration. Politicians are like puppets on a string. And you'll just tell yourself that Obama did all this. No, he did a lot. So did Biden, but they're not really the masters behind what's going on. But that's like a little narrative that makes you feel good about it. It's like, it wasn't Republicans. It was just the other ones. Sure, whatever you want to tell yourself. But the consequences of your petrodollar, the consequences of the inflation are going to hit anyway. Like, you can lie to yourself, but the results are still going to stand. So I just wanted to make that point real quick, that a huge reason that a lot of countries are getting away with business from America is because our media in the 2000s brainwashed every American to think that that whole area was terrorist and that whole area was Muslim extremists, and whatever you do, America will be behind you with the red, white, and blue, because we don't know the difference between Gaddafi and bin Laden. And, now that policy, I think, has been seen by everybody, and people are like, yeah, we don't trust America as much as we used to, which makes total sense. Hopefully we can regain countries' trust soon, because, our nation is awesome and I don't want it to collapse. With that being said, here's the last clip. Hopefully it doesn't get copyright stricken. It's a pretty long one. It's like 3 minutes long. Candace plays this clip from ABC that actually aired, because at first, I saw a lot of people on social media over the last 5-6 years. They would always talk about dancing Israelis. And I thought that it was just some conspiracy theory or perhaps some, just talking point. And then I realized that, oh, wait, Candace realized it seems like as well. She included it, that it's actually a United States media thing in which certain people were looking at the towers falling, allegedly taking pictures of it, laughing and dancing, which is very bizarre behavior. But most people don't know about this. So I was pretty, surprised that Candace included this in her video, and I'd never seen the full thing. So I'm just going to play it here and then react to this American news clip from after 9/11.
Were plenty of Americans who thought that it was, at the very least, incredibly suspicious during 9/11, shortly thereafter, when this segment ran, also back in 2002, on ABC News as an update to a prior segment that they had done. Take a listen.
In the days after the September attacks, there were countless rumors about strange coincidences surrounding the events. One report about a group of Middle Eastern men spotted the morning of September 11th parked just across the river from New York City has not gone away. Investigation of their presence has led to questions about whether Israel was conducting espionage on U.S. soil. We're joined now by ABC's John Miller with an exclusive report this evening.
That's right, Elizabeth. This is a case that took the FBI and the CIA more than 2 months to sort out, while 5 Israelis waited in jail. It began when this woman was watching the Twin Towers burning from her apartment in New Jersey. She noticed 3 men on top of a van, posing for pictures with the towers burning in the background.
And I could see that they were like happy. They didn't look shocked to me. They didn't look shocked. I thought it was very strange.
The witness called police, who stopped the van hours later and arrested 5 men. All 5, it turns out, were Israeli. They were turned over to the FBI. Sources tell ABC News during a check of national security databases, some of the men were listed as having had connections with Israeli intelligence. At the FBI, that set off alarm bells. The FBI needed the answers to 3 important questions. Who were these men? What brought them to that parking lot on the morning of September 11th? And did they have any advance knowledge of what was going to happen that day? The men said they were just taking pictures at the time. They said they worked for a company called Urban Moving. The FBI obtained a search warrant for the company's offices.
2 SUVs were filled up with between 9 and 12 boxes and computers.
Not long after the arrests, the offices of urban moving were simply abandoned. Almost everything was left behind. In jail, the 5 Israelis were repeatedly interrogated and given lie detector tests. Stephen Gordon was their American lawyer.
They were asked questions if they had ever been approached by or hired by any non-United States intelligence community.
While there is still some debate among American intelligence officials, many investigators believe some of the men were part of an Israeli operation aimed at monitoring radical Islamic charities that support groups like Hamas, something lawyers for the 5 men and the Israeli government strongly deny.
These 5 Israelis were not involved in any intelligence operation in the United States. The story is simply false.
In the end, the FBI concluded there was no evidence that any of the 5 men had advance knowledge of the September 11th plot. After 71 days, the 5 Israelis were deported, leaving some ruffled feathers among both U.S. and Israeli officials.
All right, guys, so nothing to see there. Obviously, you'd be a conspiracy theorist if you had any questions about that. You actually would be worse. You'd probably be anti-Semite if you had any questions about a foreign government overseas that had people who were attached to their intelligence apparatus who were celebrating and taking photos as the towers burned and American citizens were dying.
Pretty ballsy to play that clip and do that segment. I've seen another clip from what I recall where they went back to Israel and they were on some sort of television show, from what I remember, and they said that they were there to take pictures of the event. Like, that's just from my recollection, from my memory. It's been a while since I've seen the clip. I'll probably try to look for it after. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty interesting stuff, and she included that in her video. So let me know what you guys think. I'll probably talk a little bit about it at the end, but I do want to get into this James O'Keefe stuff as well and react to that. But I'll just say this when it comes to 9/11. You know, I think it was real. I think people died. I mean, I know that it's true. I know that thousands of people died. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm just not an idiot. So at the end of the day, we use that as justification to go to a lot of places and to do a lot of things. And we now live in a time where we get to see what the country looks like, right? We get to see, what does America look like 2024? Is it better? Is it healthier? Our border's not even closed. If, like, that's the first thing you do, Bin Laden, Hamas, whoever, it doesn't matter who, nobody, everybody, close to the border. If our government really gave a shit about us, if our media really gave a shit about us, they'd make sure that our border was closed, especially now. And they don't do that. So anybody that doesn't ask questions about what the hell is going on in this country, anybody that doesn't ask questions, like if you're a normie in 2023, you're like, yeah, they locked down and kept the liquor stores open, but closed all the gyms and closed all my work and just printed a bunch of money and caused inflation. And the pharmaceutical industry made a lot of money and people got depressed and fatter because they couldn't go to the gym. That was for our health. Like, if you're that dumb, then, you know, to me, it's like, that's the same thing of believing everything of the past. Clearly, I'll say this at this point. Tragedies move the needle when it comes to politics. Every politician knows that. I'm not saying they cause them. I'm not saying they force them. But when one happens, regardless of what you want to think about it, they then use it as justification to do the things that they always wanted to do. And they know that if they can't get away with something, if they can't pass a bill, then, you know, once a tragedy happens, now they can. If they want to invade a country, like, how you can't just invade a country. Well, now you can. You know, you can't just go after two different leaders in different countries. Well, if you can brainwash the American public into thinking that everyone's a terrorist and they don't know the difference between this terrorist organization, this leader in this country, then you kind of can, you know. But at the end of the day, I'll say this. All this stuff is above my pay grade in the sense of like what the quote unquote deep state is doing and the intelligence communities are doing and our military is doing. But anybody with half a brain, like, I don't care who you are watching this video, you know, the government needs to do a better job caring about America. The border's wide open. This country's going to shit. The media lies constantly. Our culture is debaucherous, degenerate, and just totally backwards. People are getting robbed in the street every day. People's cars are getting broken into. Houses are getting broken into. America's starting to turn into a shithole. So, if you got to start a war to keep the petrodollar up, or you got to invade a country for the banks in order to, keep our dollar afloat, or whatever people might think that they want to do, or you're spreading democracy in Ukraine and Israel, whatever you're saying you're doing, whatever. But the part about actually making America better is clearly not true. So anybody should have questions about everything, because the one thing that you should be doing if you actually gave a shit about America, you're not doing, and everybody knows it. So it only leads me to the conclusion that whoever is running America, or whoever's controlling the people who run America, hate Americans, don't care about Americans, and have no problem sacrificing Americans for some other agenda. It's hard to think otherwise, just based on reality that we all can see. So, if you want me to think otherwise, God bless you. Do a better job. And I would never have thought this in the first place. It's not my fault. They're doing a horrible job. Anyway, speaking of another video, James O'Keefe is gone from Project Veritas. He now has, I think, O'Keefe Media Group, I believe it's called. And he dropped this video in which I saw Elon Musk has responded to. Elon, he's a little sneaky. Elon is, I don't know if I fully trust him. I definitely don't, especially after his verification program on Twitter. It's very suspect, but he's making you give your ID to a foreign country in order to use Twitter. It's a little weird, but besides that, I think he actually does a better job shifting culture than the GOP. I would argue that in the last 2 years, Elon Musk has done more for conservative Americans and for Americans in general than all of the GOP. That doesn't mean I fully trust him or anything, but it's just the truth. This guy moves the needle. This guy's on top of everything. He's on the pulse. He's not stupid. And he's pretty ballsy with a lot of this stuff. So he responded to this James O'Keefe video, because Elon really does not like anti-white racism, as he sees it, and a lot of people see it, and he calls it out more than most Republicans do. Even one time he called it out too much, because he said, I don't want to misquote him, but I think that he noticed that there were certain Jewish organizations that do not see themselves as white that were pushing, as he said, anti-white hatred. And Elon got in so much trouble for that accurate observation that he ended up in a different country surrounded by Jewish leaders, basically apologizing. So, that seems to happen quite often whenever you figure that stuff out. But I guess you can call it every single way: white, black, black, white, Jewish, black, black, Jewish. You can call it every way, but you can't notice that group to that group, because that's, fly to a different country, apologize to a bunch of leaders to prove that there's no power there or something. I don't know what they're doing, but Elon seems to notice this stuff quite thoroughly, and he elevated this. This is why I saw it. So I follow James, but I saw it in my feed because Elon Musk said something in response to this video. So let's watch it. I cut it into 3 clips, and if you want to watch the full thing, find James O'Keefe on any social platform that he's on.
Certainly, there have been times where, there's no way we're hiring a white male person.
Just kind of unspoken.
There are times when it's spoken, but
how would they say it?
There's no way we're hiring a white male person. They say
straight to you, or okay.
Yeah. They'd be very careful how they message that to agents.
According to these videotapes, Disney blatantly discriminates against white men in particular.
Bro, I'm sorry, I don't know if it's funny, but James O'Keefe is he's a cold man. Like, the fact that he gets these hot chicks, or sometimes he'll get gay politicians to snitch to gay guys or whatever, or spill their guts to gay guys. I guess he just got a hot chick or something with this guy. But if you look in his eyes, he's got that Justin Timberlake just took a mugshot look in his eyes. It's almost like this guy knows he's messing up, or he knows, I don't know, or maybe he's just wasted. I can't really tell, but he looks so scared. Understandable. He probably, his job is on the line, and he's in some cases probably fucked, excuse my language, because this video came out. But hopefully he could find a different career, because his one at Disney's probably up. But anyway, he's everybody at Disney knows that they're, that they don't want to hire white people. I didn't need a James O'Keefe video to figure that out. I would assume that every corporation is that way now. Doesn't make it right, doesn't make it okay. I'm not naive. I can tell that, most liberal corporations are, anti-white at this point, I guess you could say. I mean, I'm not like a huge victim where I feel like I can't get my dream job at Disney. I always wanted to be the princess. I'm just kidding. But like I'm not playing the victim. I'm just saying I've noticed the pattern that they like to elevate like, obese no, I'm just kidding. I don't know. Like people that aren't white in order to show the world how not racist they are, because nothing screams not racist like only hiring somebody because of their skin color. And then they're the type of people that will take a bunch of selfies with like white chicks or other chicks, minority, whatever. They'll have like a black chick friend and they'll be like, look, I'm taking pictures with her, look, her hair's so great, look, oh my gosh. And it's like the chick's probably like, yo, I know you're just using me as a token or whatever. Like you could feel the energy. Like if your friend really likes you, you're like, oh, that's my boy. It don't matter that we're different races. That's my brother. That's my man. And then you like some of these chicks that are like not racist and they're liberal. It's like they're so cringe that it's like they're just like, look, I'm taking a selfie with a black person on Juneteenth. Look at me. Look how not racist that makes me. And it's just like everyone knows that you're cringe. You can't like just say you're not racist to be like not racist. That's not really how it works. But yeah, I pretty much assume that's how all these companies are at this point. I don't know. Pretty sure I'm banned or blacklisted from ever working at almost any company in the country, which is not good. So, I guess thank you for showing people that this is happening, because if it keeps going in this direction, it's probably not good for America. But anyway, let's watch again.
I think I'm sort of like well prepared for it. I'm well positioned for it. But as far as Disney's concerned, I'm a white male. That's not who they're looking to promote at the moment.
As a white guy, even Michael has his own doubts about the possibility for advancement for himself at Disney. In fact, Michael actually got to experience Disney's discrimination against white males firsthand.
I've been at the company 11 years now, so I have friends in HR and I have friends in those divisions, and they're like, look, nobody else is going to tell you this, Mike, but they're not considering any white males for the shop. They're just not. That's not what they want.
James O'Keefe is the type, like you could be at a bathroom stall in the middle of like a porter potty at like Disneyland, and you're just on your phone playing chess or something, playing Scrabble, Words with Friends, and he just knocks on the door. He's like, hey, James O'Keefe from O'Keefe Media Group. And you're like, oh, gosh darn it. Like, he'll pop up anywhere. He'll pop up in a porter potty at a diner. It's like when James O'Keefe comes around, it's like the opposite of Santa Claus. When Santa Claus comes around, you're like, oh, I'm getting gifts. When James O'Keefe's around, you're like, did I just get recorded? Like if you're this Disney guy, I don't know. Anyway, let's play the last clip.
Passed over a qualified half-black person for a promotion because they didn't look black enough.
We wanted to hire somebody in the department a few years ago now who was half black, but didn't appear half black. And there was a creative executive who was like, that's not what's wrong. Like, they wanted somebody in meetings who would appear a certain way, and he wasn't gonna bring that to the meeting. I mean, it kind of feels like we're, at some point there's going to be a lawsuit. That's kind of how it feels, just because of,
And that is a lawyer talking.
I think he's been at Disney too long, because he's like, they don't want to hire me because I'm a straight white man. And people are like, are you sure the straight part? Are you sure? I mean, you're definitely white, but are you sure? No, I'm just kidding. But 11 years at Disney, like it's hard not to get gayer, so he might be straight. He might not be. I don't know. I just thought it was funny. He's like, a straight white man like myself. And it's like, I don't know. Let's ask Goofy. Only Goofy and Mickey might know. But you work at Disney enough, you get a little gayed up. If I came back from Disney 11 years, I'd have a lisp for sure. But anyway, if you have a lisp, it doesn't mean you're gay. It just traditionally how people stereotype, which is horrible. Which I'm here to say, do not stereotype. It's the worst thing in the world. But here's the thing. I don't talk about this stuff too much because it's just so obvious at this point, but either you got to have it one way or the other. It's the double standards. Like America, whether you're black or white or Asian or whatever, Muslim, Christian, Jewish, all the people of the world singing songs with, Sam Smith songs, holding hands, whatever. No matter what you are, like America is at this point a very diverse country. Some people don't want it that way. Others do want it more diverse. Some people don't even notice or care. But whether you want it to be or not, it is that right now. So if we live in a country that is diverse, you can't have double standards or else the country doesn't work anymore. Double standards only work if everyone's the same race and they're just picking on someone else that barely isn't there, which I'm not saying that's the right thing to do. I'm just saying, like, a diverse country doesn't work with double standards. So if you want to run a company, and I'm not Clarence Thomas, clearly you could tell by everything about me that I'm not Clarence Thomas, but wouldn't that be cool if I was? I'm not Samuel Alito. I'm not a Supreme Court judge. I'm not a lawyer. But just my intuition tells me either everyone's got to be able to do it or nobody's is able to do it. You know, before the whole Martin Luther King thing and segregation and integration, black people could have black businesses and white people could have white businesses. Once that changed and the Supreme Court, you know, went in on that or whatever happened, it's not that way. So if it's not that way, then everybody can't do that. If only certain groups can do that, but one group can't do that, it doesn't work. People are going to naturally be annoyed. I'm not a victim. I don't feel like anything's ever been held for me because I'm a Caucasoid or a Caucasian or whatever funny word you want to use that won't get me censored off YouTube. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's like I got to grind and I got to do, you know, I got to work hard regardless of my skin color. And it's going to be my work ethic and hopefully my charm and my talent that gets me through even against all odds. But at the same time, I identify that without playing the victim, that it either works if everyone can do it or nobody can do it. So if Disney wants to not hire white people, they should just come out and say it. They should say, listen, we're Disney. We don't want to hire whites. Is that right? Probably not, but I'd have more respect for Disney. I'm like, dang, Disney's going hard in the paint. Like, I find stuff like that, you know, it's more honorable to tell the truth, even if you disagree with someone, than it is to basically lie. So if Disney came out and say, we don't want to hire the whites, okay, well, then other companies have to be able to be discriminate against other races as well, just like you do. But everyone would have a problem with that. So that's just how a diverse country's got to work. Either everyone can do it or nobody can do it. You know, I have people on my show that are black, and they make the talking point that they think that the Supreme Court went too far when they forced companies to do certain things. And you see this in other parts of the, you know, the country as well, like with the gay, you know, should a straight Christian baker have to bake a homosexual a cake? I don't know. Like, I'm not a lawyer. I could just tell you what I think, I guess. But like, I'm not saying this to pander. I really don't give a shit. I've already said enough today. We talked about 9/11 and anti-whiteism, but in general, it's like, should a baker be forced to bake a gay cake? I don't know. But if he can or can't, then everyone can or can't. Like, the rules got to apply to everybody. That's all I know. You know, like, if he has to do it, then everyone has to do it. If he doesn't have to do it, then no one has to do it. I'm of the thing of like, okay, if you do that, Disney, cool. But then let other people discriminate as well. And then let other people not discriminate. And then if you want to go to a business that wants everybody, then you go to that business. And if you want to go to a business that discriminates, but that's not the law in the country right now. So how are they getting away with it? I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a judge. Like, how are they able to do the MLK, like, you know, skin color doesn't matter thing, but then every company is discriminating based on skin color and gender and sexuality, but then other people can't do it back. I don't know how they're getting away with it. I don't know the laws. I don't know the rules. It all confuses me. But, you know, it's obvious to me at this point that most mega corporations do want to pick certain people. And, you know, I would say instinctually, I feel like if everyone was allowed to do it, then it would be okay. And I've read books from the past from even black leaders in the 30s and 40s. And, you know, they made an interesting point that most people would never think of because we've grown up in the era where we never saw both sides of that equation. But even Manning Johnson, it's one of the better books that I've read, Color, Communism, and Common Sense. Manning Johnson was saying that integration was ruining black businesses, and he didn't want it to happen. He thought that it was liberals pushing it too far, and he said that it was actually destroying black businesses. And he said that, you know, basically, he wanted to go places that wanted him. He didn't want to force his way into a place that didn't want him because he felt like as a man, there were enough places that accepted him, and he didn't like feel like going to hotels just to prove a point and be an activist. So, you don't know that history because they buried that history and made it seem like it never happened. But there were people at the time who, they felt like now their businesses were not allowed to do what they've been doing. Like there were Black schools for Black people only. There were Black, cab drivers for Black people only. And then once they did the integration, they weren't allowed to do that anymore. And here's the thing. You might say, well, oh, just pick up a new clientele. Everybody knows it's not that easy. Like imagine if you're teaching 500 Black kids and they're like, oh, look, integration's here. Teach some white kids. Do you think every white and Black family it's like a little much right at once? Where like, I think integration was happening naturally and it was already happening. And then they just snapped their fingers and everyone do it. And a lot of Black schools went out of business. A lot of Black businesses went out of business. And I'm sure on the other side, it's true as well. Where, at this point, if there are rules against discrimination, it's got to apply to everybody. You can't, if no one else can discriminate against gay or Black or Asian or whatever, then you can't discriminate against white, right? I think that's fair. And then if they want to go back, like maybe liberals and other businesses, people will laugh at this and be like, no way. But there might be a point where people want to go back to the other way. You might not want to, but I see it at this point. Like if you read the comment section, I'll give you an example. Michael Chandler is an MMA fighter. He's white. He's a Caucasian man, and he's adopted Black children. He has 2 Black sons, I think. If you read the comment section, like, if you talk to your friends about it, everyone's going to be like, yeah, that's awesome. It doesn't matter your skin color. He adopted Black kids. If you read the comment section on Twitter, it's filled with Black Americans saying, we don't want you to adopt Black kids. You know what I'm saying? Like the internet brings it all out. And there's a lot growing on both sides of the racial divide of people who are feeling like they used to. You might not like it. You might not agree, but I see that stuff all the time now where it's like, it's way more prevalent now than it was 10 years ago. And, there's a lot of reasons for that. I think I don't have the time to like list all the reasons I think that's happening, but it's like, there might be a time in 15, 20 years where people like maybe liberals will come out and be ballsy and be like, listen, we'll just admit it. We don't want to hire white people. And then other people will say, either they'll say one of two things. You have to hire us, or, okay, fine. Then let's start a Christian organization where you can only hire Christians, or, some people think that's horrible. That's going backwards. Other people would probably want that. Probably most people would not want that at this point. But, at a certain point, it's got to be everybody. Like the rules have to apply to everybody. If the rules don't apply to everybody, it makes people more tribalistic, because essentially, here's the thing. I'm mostly white, almost completely white. I'm part Puerto Rican, but I don't put Hispanic down on a sheet. I just put nothing because I don't feel like telling people my race all the time. But in general, it's like, say I'm white, right? And I never gave a shit about my skin color. I'm white. I don't care what I am. This is just who I am. I never like thought that much about my identity until the last couple of years of all this shit in my face. But anyway, my whole life, it's like none of this matters to me. Race never mattered to me in college. I never thought about it. Like no one gave a shit. But the reason I started giving a shit about my race and my skin color is because everyone else started caring. And then you start hearing these things, and I don't have a huge victim story because I'm not soft. I just always get what's mine and work hard, and no one owes me anything. So if someone doesn't want to hire me, I don't cry about it. It's just like, okay, I don't care. If someone didn't want to hire me and they said, I'm not going to hire you because you're a white boy, I still wouldn't care. I wouldn't like make a scene and be like, I need a lawyer. I'd be like, okay, that guy doesn't want to hire me because of my skin color. I guess I'm not supposed to work there. Well, luckily there's a world of a billion other things. Yeah. It's like, I don't see things the same way other people see things. I don't feel like a victim. I don't give a shit if people don't want to hire me because of my race. In fact, I felt this early on, but I never complained about it. Like when it comes to the music industry and certain stuff, in some cases they want a white boy. In other cases, they don't want a white boy. And sometimes they want a girl to do stuff. Like, people just want certain things the same way you want to watch the NBA, not the WNBA, until Caitlin Clark came. But whatever. In general, it's like I started caring and noticing race more when people started like putting up roadblocks in life and calling you certain things, where it's like, if I have an opinion about politics and you just say your opinion's wrong, Okay, sure. You could think that. I think I'm right, but whatever. But, during the Trump era, people started saying, oh, well, you're white, so you can't do this, that. And I never cared. I'm not a victim. It's not like boohoo, poor me. It's just like now I start noticing race more because you're throwing me in a corner. You're saying you're this is your gender, this is your race, you go there. And it's like, okay, I'm going to stand here. And then they go, you can't stand there. You're a supremacist. You just threw me there. What do you mean I can't stand there? You told me I can't stand with you. I walked to the other side, and now you're saying I can't stand on the other side. Like, it's like they don't even want you to exist. Spoiler alert. That's probably part of it. But in general, that's just kind of how it goes. So everybody's feeling more racial now than they were 10 years ago. And it's a product of it being pushed everywhere. And to Disney or anybody, like, this is just the truth. If you want all the races to be united, you got to go merit-based. You got to go content of character. You got to pick the best people, and you can't put up roadblocks just for white men, or else white men are going to want to not be on your side, and they're going to want to do their own thing. And then when they do their own thing, you're going to call them a racist for doing what you did. And that's why I don't like any racial activists. They're all annoying to me, okay? Including even some of the white ones. They're also a little soft and annoying as well. They cry about everything too. But in general, you have a right to feel how you feel. But if you're a black guy doing black activism, but you call it racist when a white guy does it, you're a hypocrite. If you're Jewish doing all these things, calling everything anti-Semitic, but when a white person does it, you say it's white supremacy, you're a hypocrite too. And it's the same with every side. So it's like, I don't care what people do. If you love race, if you don't care about race, if race is your whole identity, or if you don't even notice it because you're an individual, I don't give a shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't care. But just be honest about it. Be fair about it. If you're doing that, why would they not be able to do that? So that's the only thing I really think about all this stuff. It's like, if companies want to do this, just get your balls, put them on not literally put them on the table, because that's disgusting, but put your balls on the table and say, this is who we are. We don't want men. We don't want men here. Okay. I don't care. Then, other companies should not be able to, should not hire women if they don't want to. I'm actually fine with that. I don't know that it's like the perfect solution, but it's like, if they don't want to hire men and they don't want to hire white people, okay, then leave it up to every company to do what they want to do. Most companies would still, even with no government forcing at this point, most companies would be for everybody. I guarantee it. 99% of companies would still operate normally. Then you'd have liberals and other groups doing certain things that, and certain races doing this. And then you'd have a small fringe of other races doing their thing. And, I think it's the only two solutions. Either everybody's got to live by the content of their character, merit-based stuff, and there's no racial discrimination. I'm fine with that. That's the way it's supposed to be, but it's not. Or you go back and you say, do whatever you want, but everyone can do whatever they want. And then as a consumer, you would be able to decide. Like, say there was a business that was all black or all white or all men or all women, and you hated the fact that they were doing it. You don't have to buy their product. You can go support a multicultural product. You could go support a diverse product or whoever, like the best food. I think you just can't have a country where there's double standards. That's why America's failing. Everything's a double standards. Everything is hypocritical. It doesn't work. Of course, and then you're going to have the race that's getting discriminated against stand over there. And then when they stand over there, why are you standing over there? And this happens time and time again. And they cycle through who it goes to. But yeah, I guess like that's I wouldn't even call it unpopular, but it's like everyone's going to play this clip and be like, boo-hoo, white men are getting discriminated against. Boo-hoo, we're the victims. Boo-hoo, give us a job. An interesting dynamic would be like, no, just come out and say what you actually mean. Stop pretend. Like, if you don't believe the Martin Luther King thing, if you believe it, believe it. You want to, it's about the skin color and the merit. Cool. Do that. I'm fine with that. Sounds great. But if you can't do that, stop freaking lying. Stop lying and saying you're doing it. You're not doing it. So if you're not doing it, first of all, it's probably not a good idea to not do merit-based, in my opinion, because at the end of the day, if you're not picking the best people, that doesn't sound like a good idea. No, you're going to eliminate certain races and certain genders because you don't want them, but they might be the best. Sounds like a bad idea. But if you're going to do a bad idea, then let everyone try it. That's the only solution, in my opinion. But, I'll say this too, as much as I identify it, as much as I know it's real, this is just how I lived my life. And I'm not saying it's right, but being the way I looked, I feel like everything's a pro and a con. And this is like maybe like the wholesome thing that I'm going to talk about. I can't tell if it's wholesome or controversial anymore. There's no difference to me. But in general, it's like whether you have long hair or short hair, you're tall or you're small or you're black or you're white, like you are who you are. And if you want to succeed in whatever you're doing, like you're going to have to do it no matter what you look like, because unless you want to get plastic surgery or something, but I wouldn't recommend it. But anyway, it's like I am who I am. So when I grew up, like, you know, you could say, oh, I'm a white rapper. They don't like me because I'm like, and like there was some of that at the labels, like they didn't understand how to talk to me because I was white. But at the end of the day, you could say the opposite and be like, oh, they're just looking for white boys to make into Justin Bieber. They're looking, you know, so it's like it always goes both ways. There's always a pro and a con to everything. It's like, you know, oh, there's privilege. There's privilege to a lot of things in this world. If you're a hot chick, you have hot chick privilege. You know, hot chicks can cut lines. If a hot chick that's in her 20s and a 10, probably even in 30s or 40s too, if you maintain yourself, that's a 10 out of 10. She can get meals paid for her every day if she wanted to by other guys and not even have to kiss anybody. I'm sure there's chicks here that have probably done that at some point in their life. Like, let's just go on a date 3-4 times a week and, you know, get the guy and then just leave. And I don't even give a shit. I'm just saying it's like hot chicks have certain privileges. They can cut lines. They can get free shit. Guys are throwing money at them. Like, please, Habibi, come to Dubai. Baby girl, come on, be on a beach with me. I'll give you money. I pay for the flight, first class, Habibi. You know, we all know it. Let's just be honest about it. Okay. And then, you know, say you're that type of girl and you're like, I just want to be left alone. Okay, well, stay in the house. You're hot. The guys are not going to leave you alone. I'm not saying it's right, but, you know, and then if you're not hot and you're ugly or you're fat, you know, and then it's like, why won't guys fly me out to Dubai? It's like, I wonder. And then it's like, oh, I just want to be left alone. It's like, well, that's a easier possibility, you know, depending where you go. So it's like, sometimes I want to go out and I want to be left alone. But like people recognize me, you know, like sometimes I'm just like, I just want to get my groceries, you know, me being just so successful and awesome. No, I'm just kidding. But it's like, and then people will say, it's like, it is what it is. It's a blessing. Like sometimes I'll meet women and they'll be like, oh my gosh, anomaly. And then other times I'm just tired and I'm just like, you know, a cool person. Other times I'm just like, but it's not like I'm a victim. It's just, there's privilege to everything in this world. Like there's privilege to being a lot of things. So it's like, you know, if you're black, you have certain superpowers, and then you have certain things that, you know, people might judge wrong until they meet who you are and then not. And then same with white. There's probably going to be people that if you walk into Disney and you're a Caucasoid or a Caucasian boy, you know, they might think all these things about you and they might be right or they might be wrong. But it's like, you know, it's like there's going to be an element of everything. Like Lionel Messi is good at soccer and he's small. If he was tall, he wouldn't be good at soccer. You know, if Victor Wembanyama was small, he wouldn't have tall privilege and he wouldn't be in the NBA. Like it works all ways. Lil Wayne's not tall, but it doesn't matter. It's just like things, you know, in this world, there's a pro to having a lot of hair. There's a pro to being bald. You know, there's pros and cons to everything. So this idea of privilege, like this is just my opinion. If like you got to work with the cards you were dealt. And in my, like, I never played the victim, you know, and I believe that's why I got there. Because people will say to black people, don't play the victim, or they'll be like, you know, if you're a woman, don't play the victim. Sure. Yeah, no, that's good advice because your mindset's going to determine your reality. So if you're black, you want to crush it mentally and not feel like you're weak because then you'll be weak. But if you're white too, a lot of white people, you can stand up for activism that nobody's talking about and realize that people are turning against your race without being like a pussy about it and playing the victim to like a huge extent. Call it out, be strong about it. Don't be a fraud. Don't be a pussy. Don't be lame. But at the same time, like, you know, there's so many like anonymous accounts all the time that'll like talk shit to me. It's like, bro, what do you even look like? Would you say that to me in person? Probably not. Like, go work out, go make something of yourself. Look at my face. I made it. You know, I didn't play the victim. I didn't wait for someone to hire me. Oh, Daily Wire doesn't want to hire me. I don't give a shit. You know, this person doesn't want to hire me. I don't give a shit. Well, they don't want to talk to you because Anomaly mentioned something about the Israel speech laws. Who the fuck cares? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll talk about it and I'll tell you that it's true, but I don't say boo-hoo, I need a handout. Nobody owes me anything. They don't have to hire me based off my skin color, my views, or my gender, my hair. They could pick any reason and say, I don't want to hire Anomaly. And I don't really give a shit, because at the end of the day, my legacy is going to be determined by what I do and who I am, not what other people think I am or whether they want to work with me or not. If I believed the hype against myself, I would have never made it. You know how many record industry people told me you can't do that, or, you know, you're white, we want to dress you up like this, or you're this, talk about weed and women. And I never gave a shit, you know, and that's why I got to the point I got to, because I never believed in people that told me I had to be a certain way. But I also never played the victim. I didn't sit online and say, oh no, I'm a white boy and they won't sign me. It's like, no, who cares? You know what I'm saying? Like, don't even give them the satisfaction. In this world, whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you're a guy or a girl, like, you determine your own destiny based on what you put out. And only if you believe the negativity about yourself, or you believe the limits of yourself, then you'll fail. But if you could rise above it, it's like, I don't care. Disney would probably never hire me. Fox News would probably never hire me. CNN would probably never hire me. 99% of companies in this country probably would never hire me at this point. I'm probably blacklisted for most every major company. Yet against all odds, I'm still here. How? Because I don't care. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to work at Disney. And if I did work at Disney and they're doing this to me, it's like, yeah, it sucks. But at the same time, now it's time for you to embrace your new role, which is not being like a pushover at Disney, where it's like, oh my gosh, they could fire me any second for being a Caucasian. Dude, what a pathetic life to live. Why don't you stand up, white boy? No, I'm just kidding. But, you know, stand up and be like, hey, Tina, I don't appreciate you, you know, saying I can't get a raise because I'm a white boy. And she'll say, that's racist. And you'll be like, Tina, no, it's not. What are you talking about? We just went and got tacos yesterday. You know, it's like everybody's so like subservient to the narrative, to this, to that. And I know a lot of people have noticed, like, now there's like reverse victim cards from groups that say they're not playing the victim. And I see it. It's like, on one hand, everyone has the right to call it like they see it. On one hand, you don't have to hate your race or hate your gender. On another hand, there's a way to stand up and be strong without being a pussy about it, in my opinion, where like so many people are just like so weird about it, where it's like, if everyone, and this is like a perfect world, but if everyone just called it like they saw it and didn't play the victim, we'd be crushing. But in a world where that's not the way the world works, we got to call it out. And this is my message to corporate America, politicians, etc. If this country is the way it is, which it is, you got to stop with the double standards. You can't only discriminate against certain races because you consider them privileged, or certain genders. It's not going to work. Those people are going to go make a coalition somewhere else. And then when they do, you're going to call them racist. So it's like, it's just like this never ending stupid cycle that I'm just not playing a part of. It's like, you know, they can call me a lot of things, but I'm not a liar, and I'm not like a pushover, and I don't feel like I'm being persecuted. It's like, I know that the country is not where I wish it was, but like, that's everybody. I don't feel like they're singling me out. I feel like they're fucking over, excuse my language, this country for everybody. You know, like, I think everybody, they're making this a less desirable place to be and live, and it sucks. So I see the trends, I see what they're doing. I appreciate when this stuff comes to light, but that's my take. Someone said I say a lot of words. Yeah, it's called podcasting. Welcome to the show. You say a lot of words. Yes. Yeah. Yes. It's like listening to my rap song and you're like, you're rhyming words. And I'm like, yeah. You're like, yeah, the words just keep rhyming. Yeah, it's called a rap song. That's what I make that too. I'm a hip hop artist. Appreciate you guys. God bless you. God bless your family. God bless America. God bless the world. Let me know what you think in the comment section. God bless everybody of every race, religion, gender, creed, culture, country, continent, cordyceps, you know, curdled cheese, any word that starts with a C. I appreciate everybody. Thanks for listening. And if everybody listened to me in this country, it would be a better place for everyone. We would beat up racism completely, but not with Mickey Mouse walking around discriminated against them white boys. That's, you know, it's never going to work that way. But I'm just kidding. Mickey Mouse, I know it wasn't you. I know you've been at the company since Steamboat Willie. You've seen it all, but you know, it is what it is. Just my opinion. Appreciate you guys. Have a good day.
Hey, what's going on, my friends? Just a few ways to stay in touch and support if you'd like to. The first way is dreamrare.com. We have blue beanies, black beanies, pink hats, other colored hats, freedom versus tyranny shirts,
Stay blessed long sleeve, God is great long sleeve, and lots of more cool items coming soon. Dreamrare.com. Check out the shop to support. Everything's made in the United States. Handpicked by me. Patreon.com/raretalk for $5 a month. You can help support me, support the show. If you haven't noticed, unlike other channels, I don't work with very many sponsors, sometimes none at all. And part of the way I'm able to do that is